Okay.
Welcome to episode number 327 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching for Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording on October 17, 2020. A lot of things to talk about this week, as usual, including Zoom Zaps, Google Analytics 4, no politics policy, town hall ratings, paying hackers, Echo notifies, ancient recipes, LiDAR lenses, we're not okay, funeral home flyers, and you'll want to stick around for some updated data on cord cutters at the end of the show. But at the beginning, we start with the best story of the week, and BL always has that honors. BL, what was the best story this week?
Well, 35 apps are going to be integrated into Zoom before the end of the year. And this is going to include Asana, Dropbox, Salesforce, Slack, SurveyMonkey, Unsplash, which I think will be great, and Zendesk. And developers will be able to create new ones. And the source of this is Product Hunt and also the Zoom blog. So third-party developers are going to be able to create and distribute apps to enrich the Zoom experience and enhance the meeting workflow. And I mean, the list is just spectacular. And so you'll be able to access multiple applications directly in the Zoom client, share the document you're working on instead of scrambling to find it, leverage Zaps before, during, and after your meeting so you don't lose information or productivity. So you can use the Dropbox Zap to share the document you're working on, and then you can put up a poll using the Slido app, or you can pull up the Asana Zap. I said app, I meant Zap, and do status updates on your team projects. And then Zoom is going to ship the first apps at this year before the end of the year, and then it'll turn over to developers thereafter. So there's really a revolution taking place in in virtual meetings, because everybody's there, and it has to get better. And I'm quite sure Zoom has plenty of money at this point.
So their apps, they're calling their apps Zaps, and I'm
Yeah,
hearing
it's
that
kind of
correct.
fun.
It's kind of cute. Yeah. At least it sounds like apps, so it's not completely. Sometimes it drives me nuts when companies rename something that everybody always.
Unrelated,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, like what are you talking? No, Zaps on Zoom is a fun one.
Yeah, that sounds very, very helpful. We're going to be doing a lot more of it. I mean, we're already doing a lot of it, and I continue. I suspect this is the new normal. We'll be doing a lot more even after we can still not worry about dying from a virus.
Well, I mean, it has seemed to me for a very long time that the vast majority of business travel was simply stupid and wasteful. And, it was really hard for me to understand when I worked for an agency why people were always flying around when they could have just done this. So I think this is progress.
Well, back in 2008, I remember the big thing was, well, we're going to have virtual conferences because of the recession and nobody wants to pay for travel anymore. So we're going to have virtual conferences. And that never happened because, well, I guess they could stomach the travel expenses, but now you have to worry about life and death decisions. And that's a different story.
And yet some people are flying.
Yeah, that's just weird. So this is big. This is a story by Google. Google has posted an update to its analytics platform. This is from Google's Vidya Srivasan, I think is how you pronounce it. They have basically it's Google Analytics 4. They've updated it to provide more intelligent analytics. It's based on the foundation of their beta of app plus web analytics platform. It includes machine learning at its core. So you will get out, and you started to see this in analytics before they've released this version of it, but it'll automatically surface insights. So it'll tell you, hey, this is something you should be paying attention to. You should look at that we've unearthed. Basically, it allows you, they're saying, to get a complete understanding of customers across devices and platforms. They're building it. They built it to be privacy centric by design, so that with the changing regulations and privacy, it'll be able to adapt to that. It will automatically alert you to significant trends because the machine learning functionality are built in. So you can see things like products that have been rising in demand because of new customer needs. I'm thinking like hand sanitizer all of a sudden becomes really, really popular because we have to keep our antiseptic. It calculates churn probability, so you can get insight into when customers are likely to leave. So it has some predictive analytics anticipating future actions that your customers might be taking based on the analytics. Potential revenue you could earn from a particular group of customers, and if they're able to segment those types of visitors to your website, then you could create additional audiences for marketing to them through Google advertising, so you can reach higher value customers based on your own analytics. It can measure app and web integrations, interactions together. So you can understand, YouTube viewers who viewed your YouTube videos can be tied to conversions later on. So you can see if somebody who had viewed a YouTube video and then found you via a Google ad or Google search or email, and then later converted by installing your app or making a purchase on your website, you'll be able to have that insight. It's customer-centric measurement. So instead of segmenting by device or platform, I'm sure you can still do that, but it's more focused, this version of it is more focused on customer behavior. So again, like when a customer first discovers you and then later does something that is a conversion, you'll be able to understand that process. You can see what channels are driving new customers, and then use that engagement, use the engagement and retention reports to understand what actions those customers take. It is, again, the privacy aspect, it's designed to adapt to what future privacy regulations look like. So if there's a world without cookies, we're probably going away from cookies, or even unique identifiers. It will use a flexible approach, so it will include modeling to fill in gaps where data may not exist or be incomplete. The downside is that in order to take advantage of the new analytics functions, you're going to have to install a new property. So you've already got your analytics installed on your website. You've created a property to collect that data. You'll need to create a new one in order to take advantage of this new functionality. And that means that your data will only start accumulating for your website from the point that you install the new analytics, the new property. So it's not going to include all that historical data for this new property. So I suspect everybody should be doing this right now, because over time, this is going to be the new analytics. So you want to start collecting data right now.
Being Google, you would think that they could integrate the old data with the new. And it also sounds like if you're someone like me who doesn't have the tech gene that you have, that you're going to have to learn how to do this with some pretty good instruction. That's what I think.
Now, installing property is not that difficult, but it is a problem. It's inconvenient not to have your historical data.
I can't see why they would do that. I mean,
Yeah.
they have it. There's no reason they couldn't do it. I mean, and I hope that they integrate this into YouTube analytics as well, because YouTube analytics is really great, but this sounds even better.
Yeah, well, you should be able to. It looks like you'll be able to get YouTube analytics within Google Analytics, so you can see all of your data together. I don't know how much of the YouTube analytics data will come into Google Analytics, but there will be some integration, it looks like.
Maybe they want to put TubeBuddy out of business. So this one is a story about Coinbase, which is It's an Ars Technica story by Timothy B. Lee, and the CEO of Coinbase had a new policy that caused 60 of his employees to take a buyout offer. The policy said no politics because he feels like we're a mission-based company and life is too short to work at a company that you aren't excited about, he said. It's Brian Armstrong who wrote this email to the company because they're not allowed to have any type of political activism because political activism will take your mind off the company's growth, which to me is really outrageous. I would have been one of the 60 who took the buyout, but he offered anyone who wanted to leave 6 months pay, and 60 people accepted. He said political activism is a distraction that can negatively impact productivity and create internal division as it has at Facebook and Google. To me, that's just the real world. To show he was serious, he offered 4 to 6 months of salary if they weren't comfortable with the new policy. And 60 people who accepted are 5% of the staff, and more are in the midst of negotiating their way out. But nonetheless, he says he's committed to building a diverse, I almost put this in the worst news of the week because I disagree with it strongly, but he said that he's committed to building a diverse, inclusive environment where everyone feels they belong. We don't engage here when when issues are unrelated to our core mission because we believe impact only comes from focus. Well, I believe that happy employees are employees who have a life. So I don't agree with that, but I mean, I do think that as long as he was going to lay down the law in that manner, at least he's offering people 6 months pay if they want out.
I actually think that, I mean, I think he's being very, very generous. I think, having political opinions and being an activist is, everybody should be able to do that. I don't know about doing it in the workplace. I mean, if I
Well,
were,
he doesn't want you to do it at all.
well, that's stupid.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to do it at work or in social media. He just, I mean, there are organizations that prohibit, they're usually journalistic organizations that prohibit employees from, engaging in political discourse in social media, but that I understand, and people do it anyway. But, yeah, it's generous. It's the idea that you're basically in servitude to this company,
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess in certain instances, I understand why you would have such a policy. You mentioned journalism, that makes sense to me and everything. But this is unrelated. It's tangentially related. I had a conversation last week with an agency head who, they've been working remotely since March, and he was talking about how the remote workforce has increased productivity. And it's not what you would suspect, because you suspect that, well, people are actually putting more into their work because they're afraid that they're going to look like they're not, right? It's because people aren't getting up in the middle of the day for a half-hour lunch break where there are, a bunch of people gets up and goes out for a coffee break for a half an hour or whatever. And all they do is gossip. So it does two things. It cuts down, it increases productivity because they're not doing that anymore. And it cuts down on the office politics because they're not doing that anymore, which was fascinating. So.
That's interesting, but I've heard other things, other points of view about that, which is that people do get up and go make lunch and walk the dog and do the laundry, and it's a mixed bag, I think. But
well, of course,
I definitely think people are afraid of losing their jobs, and therefore they better be doing them.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. If you're working from home, you're going to be throughout the workday. Why not? Throw in a load of laundry and stuff and all that stuff. This is a younger workforce, so they're not dealing with children at home and everything like that. And in that sense, I completely.
I don't know how people do
Get it.
that. I mean, to me, that must be so difficult. It's hard enough having a puppy, let alone 3 kids running around. So I found this story really interesting, and that is that Apple has paid some white hat hackers to hack their system. They have a bug bounty challenge, as does Facebook. And so a 20-year-old and a team of white hat hackers found 55 vulnerabilities in Apple's systems and rated 11 of them critical because they allowed him to take control of core Apple infrastructure and from there steal private emails, iCloud data, and other private information, which is pretty damn scary. And so this is the source of this is Ars Technica, Dan Gooden, and also the actual lead of the hacking team, Sam Curry, who's this 20-year-old guy. And he found the bug bounty on Twitter, and then he wrote a 9,200 word explanation of what they did. And he said that we found a variety of vulnerabilities in core portions of their infrastructures that would have allowed an attacker to fully compromise both customer and employee applications, launch a worm capable of automatically taking over a victim's iCloud account, retrieve source code for internal Apple projects, fully compromise an industrial control warehouse software used by Apple, and take over sessions of Apple employees with the capability of accessing management tools and sensitive resources. And that's not all they found. So the vast majority of these findings were fixed by October 6th, and he was credited by Apple. And he said that they're typically remedied within 1 to 2 business days, sometimes within 4 to 6 hours. But the Apple infrastructure, like I'm sure any big company infrastructure, is massive, and it involves 25,000 servers. So when they completed all the scans, they started targeting the individual servers that they felt were most likely to be vulnerable. And his 92-word explanation of their methodology is really fascinating. And they were paid $51,500 in exchange for the report of 4 vulnerabilities. And then they got an email from Apple saying that they were going to get another $237,000 for 28 other vulnerabilities. And he said he was in a weird state of shock because he's never been paid that much all at once. And that's not bad for 3 months' work, huh?
What hacking pays? It's pretty amazing. Wow. So last week, BL, you and I chatted about the dueling town halls.
Yes.
Where MSNBC was going to broadcast Trump's town hall, and ABC was doing Biden's at the exact same time slot. And do you remember what I was saying about that? You're rather upset about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said about it?
You said nobody's going to watch Trump because you already know what he's going to say.
The data is in. This is from CNN's Brian Stelter, and Ad Age is Simon Domenico. And yeah, Biden, the short answer is Biden beat Trump in the ratings war. But so Thursday night town halls respectively were on NBC and ABC, as I said. But Biden was on ABC exclusively, and Trump was on MSNBC, but also was simulcast to CNBC and NBC. So 3 channels were playing, Trump's town hall, and he still lost. The Ad Age article has some data from Inscape, which is the data analytics provider of Vizio, which is the largest US maker of smart TVs. And so they have an audience, an opt-in panel of 16 million TVs that they're collecting their data from. They combined them. So once Trump was they got all the data, and then they have a chart which is brilliant. It shows MSNBC viewership, and then when the Trump town hall starts, it just drops precipitously, and then it goes slow. Nobody's watching, and then after the town hall, the viewers came back to MSNBC, and the ratings went up to the same level they were before Trump came off.
That's because Biden was only speaking for 60 minutes.
Well, they didn't watch Trump.
Or
But once
no,
Trump was
Biden
gone,
spoke for 90 minutes. Trump spoke for 60.
once Trump was gone, they went back to MSNBC. But presumably, a lot of them also flipped over to ABC to watch Biden. But it's just the graph is just brilliant because it's just exactly what I expected would happen.
Well, I watched some clips of Savannah Guthrie's interview with Trump, and she did a good job. I mean, I was all ready to boycott her and NBC, but I think of all the people who've interviewed him, she was probably the best. You know, she didn't let him off the hook on anything. She was like when he said, "I don't know who QAnon is," she said, "I just told you." And he said, "Why aren't you asking about Antifa?" And she said, "Why aren't you asking about Biden?" I said, "Because you're here." And he said, the slime ball, he said, "Oh, you're so cute." You know, that got him the suburban woman vote right there.
Yeah.
So in better news, I came across this week, and this is just fascinating. I mean, I could spend hours in here. 10,700 vintage cookbooks have been digitized and added to the Internet Archive. So it's the Cookbook and Home Economics Collection, and it has contains everything from cookbooks by Martha Stewart to the oldest one, which is from 1529. It's in Latin. I translated the title. It still doesn't mean anything to me. Excuse my Latin. Platinae Cremora, the honorable pleasure from the losing party and the way of living of the nature of the art of cooking. That's what Google Translate said. So I think Google Translate still may have a way to go. But like the rest of the Internet Archive, borrowing is free. And you have a choice. You can have a different loan period. You can either have it for an hour, or you can download the PDF. You can't download the PDF. They can only be read online. And when they only have one version of the PDF, then you can only rent it for an hour. If they have more than one, you can have it for a week. And then there's a link to where you can buy it when the book can be purchased. And so it could be checked out, and you know, it's just there's no wait list if books only offer 1 hour loans. You just have to get back when they're available. But the breadth and the range of this, and the illustrations and the kinds of recipes are mind-blowing. You know, I send it to my friends who are more intense cooks than I am, and everybody said the same thing. Wow.
Don't suppose they have any ye old pressure cooker recipes?
I'm quite sure they do. My grandmother had cookbooks with those.
Pressure cookers?
Yeah, she used pressure cookers. I remember she cooked lots of stuff in pressure cooker. I, in fact, had her pressure cooker until I became afraid that I was going to blow up my house.
Now I'm thinking about like the Renaissance era.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they had pressure cookers then.
I don't think they did. But I discovered a new well, it's probably not new, but I just discovered it, a feature of my Echo smart speaker. I ordered a pressure cooker, a Ninja Foodie pressure cooker, air fryer thing. It's fantastic. I just tried it out. It's amazing. I made French fries without boiling them in oil, so it's great. But that aside, I ordered it from Amazon, and you get the text message from Amazon saying that, you know, confirming your order, and then saying that it's shipped and everything. But then I noticed that my smart speaker had a yellow ring on the top that kept going on. I'm like, is it broken? What's going on there? But I discovered that's a notification. So all of a sudden my smart speaker was notifying me that my shipment had arrived, that it had been delivered. So I just asked, you know, show me my notification. It told me that my shipment had come in. So interesting new feature on Amazon.
I've been reading that there are a lot of new features that they're adding because a lot of people don't want to have to touch anything. They just want to talk to their smart speakers, you know? So I don't have any more good news.
We got one
Although,
more. This
okay,
is
we
from
certainly had a mixture in our good news.
Yes, we did. This is a TechCrunch article by Sarah Perez about Snapchat. So Apple has released their newest phones, or announced the release of their newest phones. Apple has an iPhone 12 Pro and a 12 Pro Max. And the big thing with these new versions of the iPhone are they have LiDAR included, light detection and ranging technology, which allows you to basically scan a room and get depth measurements and basically map a room using this technology. But then Snapchat is going to be among the first to use that technology in the iOS app for LiDAR powered lenses. So they showed a demonstration in the Apple announcement of a person sitting in a room, and there are virtual flowers and grasses that are covering a table and floor. There's birds flying by. There's grasses in the back of the room that look like they have the correct depth in them, and it's all virtual. There's vegetation climbing up and around kitchen cabinets, and the birds, when they disappear when they go behind a person, so they're recognizing the depth of and what's in front of it and out of view. So it's and they'll even precisely land on the person's hands. We'll show that video in the show notes to show people what it's like. But Snap has also updated its Lens Studio that allows augmented reality creators and developers to build their own LiDAR powered lenses for the new iPhone models, and that Lens Studio is available today.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the new iPhone is supposed to be 5G, but from everything I know, there's not actually 5G networks, so it's just a bunch of hype as far as I can tell. But that brings us to bad news, and
Yes, it does.
this is really sad. I mean, as it turns out, a lot of people feel melancholy during this period of time, and researchers looking into online behavior to gauge our mental health, our collective public mental health, the results aren't pretty. This is from this is from Is Everybody Doing Okay? Which is in the New York Times, Casey Schwartz article, and also from it's being done with something called Hedonometer. I can't say it. Anyway, a tool. And the saddest day of 2020 social media, according to Computational Story Lab of the Universal Vermont, Sunday, May 31st. And that was not only the saddest day of 2020 so far, it was the saddest day recorded in the past 13 years, or at least the saddest day on Twitter. The researchers call the Hedonometer, I think is how you say it, call it, and it's invented by mathematicians and computer scientists Chris Danforth and his partner Peter Dodds, and they co-direct this lab. It's been running for more than a decade. It measures word choices across millions of tweets every day all over the world, and they come up with a real-time meaning of well-being. So the last time the New York Times checked in with Hedonometer was in 2015, and the main findings that they got then was our tendency towards relentless positivity on social media, when everybody was always saying that they were, everything was great and I'm doing so well, and now people tell you how they're really doing. But one of the happiest years on Twitter, at least for English, was 2015, and that result now seems, Dr. Danforth said, that result now seems like an artifact from an ancient era. Since then, it's been a long decline. So this is part of a small but growing field of researchers who try to parse our national mental health through the prism of our online life. Never have we had such incredible stockpile of real-time data. Digital traces is what it's called scientifically. And since 2008, the Hedonometer has gathered randomly 10% of public tweets every day across a dozen languages. Then they look for words ranked by their happy or sad connotation, count them, calculate the kind of national happiness average based on the words that are dominating the discourse. So on May 31st, the most commonly used words on English language Twitter were terrorist violence and racism, because that was about a week after George Floyd was killed and right when the protests started that would last all summer. Dr. Danforth said our collective attention is very ephemeral, so it's really remarkable that the instrument for the first time shows this extended depressed mood, and then it got even worse. So we're not okay.
Well, that's fascinating. I think it's hopeful. I think.
So remember how we felt that day?
Yeah.
You know, we
But
couldn't even talk.
I think it was a great awakening for a lot of Americans.
Yes, it was.
And I think what we've seen since, though depressing and hard to swallow, a lot of what's going on, there's a lot of reason for hope as well because of that. I think a lot of people's eyes were opened to what needs to change, and I think there's a lot of change going on.
I think there is too, and I think that there is reason to be hopeful. There is a lot of possible change. I don't know if it's actual change yet, but I think we're moving in the direction of change. And one thing that happened this week that happened right around the time that George Floyd was murdered was the woman in Central Park, Amy Cooper, who made a fake phone call about what's his first name, Cooper. They're not related. And so she went to court this week. And he said, because he's a real mensch, he said, I'm not going to participate in the prosecution. I think she's paid a high enough price. I don't think we have to ruin her life. And, more power to him, man. He's a mensch. And I think that more people hopefully would find that in their hearts at this point. We talk a lot about this, how there needs to be more forgiveness, how there needs to be more kindness. And, maybe it's happening a little bit anyway.
Yeah. So this could be sad. This is both sad and hilarious at the same time. So I put it in worst because I had too many things in best, but it could have easily been in best, but there's a reason for it being in worst. So
it's quite a combination.
Yeah. This is from a Newsweek story by Saren Morris, and who writes about an Italian funeral home that was handing out flyers at a COVID deniers rally. In Rome, called the March of Liberation. The funeral home is called Taffo Funeral Home. They shared a photo on Twitter of a man handing out the flyers at the rally. The flyer read, "Flyer for the March of Liberation!" ! Business is business. So the attendees were not happy with that, as to be expected, but they were the attendees of this. They were protesting the mask mandate and health dictatorship, whatever that means. Taffo apparently is good at the social media game. They're apparently infamous for their irreverent approach to discussing death, which is, it's a point of differentiation if you're a funeral home, definitely, right? They have dark humor on their social media, and they've got more than 254,000 followers on 254,000 followers on Facebook, 74,000 on Instagram, and 25,000 on Twitter. But we'll put a link to the tweet in the show notes. But I just thought that was very clever, also very, very sad.
Well, yeah, it absolutely is. But I have a friend whose name is Gail Rubin, who is known as the doyen of death. And her whole point of view, and she's written a book about it, is why wait till you're dead to have a funeral? Why not find out who cares about you and have a living funeral? And she plans these for people. And apparently she's had quite a good career. She's a former PR person, or as some of us like to say, a recovering PR person. So it's definitely time for smiles. So the coolest thing ever, Bruce Springsteen got his own emoji this week. And it appears when you use the hashtag Springsteen, but it doesn't appear when you're writing the tweet. It only appears when the tweet is posted, which is strange. But the tweet comes from the Born in the USA album. And so Jay Lustig is the one who posted what it came from. But how cool is that? So the boss took some googly eyes and he pointed them to the emoji and didn't say anything else, and pinned that to his stream for a day.
So what does the emoji look like?
Bruce jumping with his guitar.
Oh, okay. No, I when I tweet about the Vikings, one of the hashtags you use when you tweet about the Minnesota Vikings is skull, because that's kind of the chant that we have.
And the
as
glass comes
Vikings
up?
fan. It's not a glass, but it is a Vikings logo, I think. So it's not, you don't see it when you're writing the tweet. You only see it after it's posted. So that's in keeping.
Yeah, because
with
first I thought it had disappeared because I didn't see it when I tried to post it. And then I saw that after the tweet was posted, it was there. So, okay, that's how it works. Do you have one?
I don't.
Oh, okay, I have more. I just came across this today, and this this is a Halloween story, pre-Halloween story. This, you have to watch this to believe it. This person apparently has a pet porcupine, and his name is Teddy, the talking porcupine. And this is a video of him enjoying Halloween pumpkins, eating them, and talking about it as he eats. And the sounds he makes are so cartoonish. It's hilarious. I intend to watch it several times a day because you can't watch it without laughing out loud. I have a link to it in the show notes. It's hysterical.
Very good.
No, you really have to see it, Dave. Okay, shiny objects.
Well, we've talked about both of these before. SEMrush we talked about last week. We've discussed the Yoast SEO plugin for WordPress. So these are two great things that are even greater together. This is from a PR Newswire posting coming from both companies. So Yoast, the SEO WordPress plugin, is now going to feature tight integration with SEMrush's keyword database and other SEO products. So it will give, the Yoast plugin will give keyword suggestions when you're composing in the WordPress editor. So tight integration between the two. In order to take advantage of it, the Yoast SEO plugin, you will need to have either a free or premium SEMrush account. But I haven't tried it yet. I will definitely be using it though, I'm sure. And I'll report back after I do.
Well, I have a pro Yoast account, but I only have a free SEM Rush account. So till somebody starts paying for it for me, I'll have the free one. So Google introduced Podcast Manager for podcast creators, and you can see how your podcasts perform in search, and you can get a lot of new listener analytics. And so if you have a podcast, you really should check it out. And it also, I'll put a link to this. They outlined all the features in tweets. So I'll put a link to where that that thread starts. But really very cool that they're giving out those statistics, because nobody's better at stats than Google.
Yeah, well, it's also really helpful to get to see where your search traffic is coming from for your podcast. That's very, very helpful data. On to politics.
Oh yeah.
I've got one. I'm just going to mention it. We'll embed it in the show notes. This is the Lincoln Project's latest video. It's called Commander in Chief.
Oh,
it is
great.
A new music video by Demi Lovato, who for her song Commander in Chief. It's an indictment of Trump and a call to action for the rest of us. And I can't say more than that without completely losing it. So we'll just put it in the show notes for people to watch themselves.
They keep outdoing themselves, I must say. Yeah. So this is, this is funny. It's a demonstration of Trump's mental decline, and he referred to Matt Gaetz, who's one of his top henchmen, to Matt Getz. It's not pronounced Gates. Matt Getz. He called him Rick Gates, so he rickrolled him, and he did that 3 times during a campaign rally. So Gates tweeted, "I'll never love another president again." And in response, somebody who who has the handle wearing a mask in North Carolina, tweeted, "He's just not that into you." And then somebody named Shelley in England said, "You got to get over him, girl. He doesn't even know your name." And I have another. Do you have another?
I don't.
Okay. You know, the Biden campaign has exhibited quite a sense of humor in digital, and I've been so impressed by that because the Trump campaign is so completely humorless. And so today on Twitter is always the hashtag Catter Day, and people show videos of their adorable cats. So today there's a video from the Biden campaign, Demo Cats for Biden. And it said, Joe Biden tweeted, "We've just got to come together to defeat Donald Trump, Democrats, independent Republicans, and yes, even Democats." And then there's the video showing all these different cats, and they're interacting with Biden's swag. And it's really very funny stuff. And, you know, the Biden campaign has been making not only good use of social and digital media, but they have a sense of humor, humility, and they tell the truth. I like that.
Yeah, that was a good one. I saw that before you put it in the show notes. I watched that. That was good.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got a pro tip, don't you?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and I'll do my pro tip because it leads into the weekly numbers. So.
Oh, okay. Well, these are things that I tell people all the time and nobody ever listens to me, but this is by Penny Growalski. And basically what it says is 2 tips for better writing: use short, simple words and short, direct sentences. And I tell people no more than 10 words in a sentence, no more than 2 sentences in a paragraph. If people are trying to read off the screen, it's very difficult to read a 92-word paragraph. And so she has illustrations of it, and it's really, you gotta do that.
Yeah, if Hemingway were alive today, he would give you the same advice: short, declarative sentences, use plain words. There's no need for a 25-cent word when a 5-cent word will do.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. So mine is this is not new advice or anything, but it's good to reiterate it for those of us who do it, or those of us who aren't aware of it. When you publish a lot of content, as you know, over the course of many years, I got a lot of content that I published that is not necessarily relevant right now. So what you can do with that old content is curate it and find bits of it that are relevant for a topic that you can write about now. And so I've got my eStrategy Trends publication that's basically daily statistics. A lot of those statistics go out of date after a certain period. So what I've done is gone and pulled out some of the statistics and put them into a longer post on the topic to show how data has changed, how user behavior has changed over the years. And that's a way of taking content that is no longer useful and putting it into a more useful context. So that's what I did with a post for cord cutters. Which leads us into the weekly numbers. I've got fresh numbers for on cord cutters. This is U.S. cord cutter households from 2019 to 2024. This is from eMarketer compiled this data. So 2019, last year, there were 24.6 million households that were cord cutters. This year, they're expected to be 31.2 million. By 2024, that number is expected to rise to 46.6 million. Cord cutting is not new. It's happened slower than a lot of people have imagined, but I expect it's being accelerated because of COVID, because people don't have the money to expend on a lot of stuff. There's a lot more choices to devote your limited entertainment resources or budget to. So I expect that's probably, there's good reason why these numbers are increasing.
I actually tried cord cutting And the problem was that I couldn't get any reception at all, which has to do with being in New York and all the interference. And I bought an antenna that was supposed to do that, and the handyman in the building tried to help me with it, and we couldn't get it to work. So theoretically, if you do cord cutting, you can still have basic channels, and it didn't work. So but I mean, the truth is, I watch Roseanne reruns at night. I mean, King of Queens, I mean, at night I need to, stop thinking. So I watch stupid television, and I very rarely my father says to me every night, "What are you watching tonight?" I say, "I don't know. I'm going to be reading. I don't really watch TV." So, why am I paying all this money? I don't know. But that brings us to the end of episode 327 of the Beyond Social Media Show. All you have to do to find us is search Beyond Social Media Show, and you'll see everywhere we are. You'll find everything we discussed today in our show notes on our blog, which is beyondsocialmediashow.com/327. Here with David Erickson, who is D Erickson on Twitter, DE Erickson on Instagram. He blogs at the wonderful e-strategyblog.com, which you should get and subscribe to. He is on YouTube as eStrategy. I'm BL Ochman. I am What's Next on Twitter. My blog is What's Next Blog. My YouTube channel is What's Next Blog. I have a website at blochman.com. The show, the show beyondsocialmediashow.com, and on Twitter we're at BS Media Show. And anywhere you get your podcasts, we're there. And we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.